Hey, everybody, and welcome to Hell is for Children. This show is on every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 2100 hours Central European Time. And my name is Geerte Frenken, and this show is all about the topic of protective mothers and their children. So, what's a protective mother? A protective mother tries to protect her child or children from their abusive father by many means necessary, which is an uphill battle in today's global corrupt family court system that thrives on paternal entitlements. And today's guest is Amanda Vistein. She's a protective mother who lost custody of her son to her abusive ex. And when her 3-year-old son was molested by a family member in the household of her ex accused their son of instigating the molestation and had Amanda jailed on false allegations of kidnapping. So welcome to the show, Amanda.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is so great.
Well, it's great to have you on. Like I was just sharing with you before we got started, is that, the show is nothing without mothers who are willing and able to come out and share their stories, which is so incredibly important because it's a pandemic. We know that. There's 8 million of us, that's the estimate, all over the world. And we need to really be vocal about our situations so we can go to policy makers and share what's happening with us so things can change, hopefully. So why don't we start with your story and take us to where you are now from the beginning of your story.
Okay. Well, this is going to be kind of hard because reliving it is it is very painful. Back in 2012, I was arrested falsely, and how that happened is the father of my child for the first 3 years of his life, he really wasn't in his life. He went from Georgia to Philadelphia to become a physician's assistant as soon as Hunter was almost 1 year old.
Were you guys married at this time?
We were never married. When I told him that I was pregnant, he, let me turn this down. He told me if I didn't have an abortion, that he would make my life a living hell and seek full custody of the child. I was 6 weeks pregnant at this time, and I'm going backwards. So during my pregnancy, he was living in Vegas and was a dealer in Vegas somewhere. He played poker for a living, did quite well with playing poker. I was scared of him. He made several threats to me, and I was petrified. I wasn't going to give up my child. I was told that I wasn't going to be able to have kids due to medical issues. Well, he was a miracle. When it came to me having my son, I went into the hospital as a no info.
What does that mean?
A no info means that if you are afraid of something, you have the right to go in as a no info, meaning if you don't even tell your mother that you are, or father, or whoever you want to know that you're having a child, they cannot tell you where you are. You do not exist, and you go into a special corridor room to give birth to this child. And so I gave birth to my son, and oddly enough, the very next day, a nurse comes in and says that the father's sister was there bringing me gifts.
So how did she find out that you were giving birth there at that time?
Well, what's funny is that the father's father is a doctor, and so is his uncle. They're doctors. And then, it's a couple other, medical professionals in their family. So I think somehow, some way, the word got out. My mom and I were very upset. But you know what? I had some sort of softy that came over me, and I said, okay, invite her in. Even though it was a HIPAA violation that they did this, I said, okay, invite her in. She even gave me a card. Family's important. The father, is the black sheep of the family, and we really want to try and make this work. I was still nervous. I let her in. I was still very nervous. And then the father immediately came back in about 2 weeks, popped back in, and I honestly wanted to give it a chance to try and trust him. Then he started in on me on, I'm think I need to be the one that's custodial here and da-da-da. I'm like, okay, that's enough. This is just enough's enough. And
Yeah, because you had broken up already as you were pregnant. So he didn't want to have the baby, and he was threatening you throughout your pregnancy. And now all of a sudden he wants to have custody?
Well, the thing is when one of the things he would tell me during my pregnancy was, I can't just have a child up in your county, and that's just embarrassing, and our reputation, and just the way that he worded it was he was more concerned about his reputation than just having a child with this other person up in another county. He also made 3 other women have abortions before me. And when I was the one that didn't feed into his crap, he didn't know what to do. And then he had to tell his mommy and daddy, who are big to-dos in that town. And there's a lot of, his grandfather, his mother's dad, was a huge stockbroker and has a lot of money and more power. And so there's a whole line of power and everything else. So to make a long story short, I'm going to do the very best I can on this piece of it. He told his family. His family said, you two might have to lead separate lives. And I said, well, you know what? He's going to have to pay child support. He's going to have to really fill in his part. This is just something that we need to do. Well, when I threw in that child support stuff around, she kept saying, oh, he's in debt. He's in debt. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't trust him. If he's really willing to put forth the effort, put your part in too. And, so soon after, he took me to court, round 1. Hunter was, it was October 8th, 2008, June, July, August. He was 4 months old. Okay. And he took me to court, round 1, and tried to take full custody of my son that day. And the judge, Lynn Alderman at the time, she gave me primary custody and said that he was going to have to pay child support, the exact amount that I told him that he was going to have to pay initially, not even knowing what his money that he made or anything like that. So she awarded me primary custody, and he got visitation. The very next day, the father came to my work and said, oh, I got a letter in the mail. I just got accepted to Philadelphia PCOM for physician's assistant. His parents did not like the fact that all he did for a living was play poker, being how, even though he was very gifted at it, being how he came from a family of educated individuals and doctors and such. So they pretty much most likely were get your butt in there and do what you need to do, and which is good, fine. And he went to Philadelphia a month later or so, and he was gone for about 16 months. He would try and have my little guy, year old at that time, while he was gone, on a box like we are, to communicate with him. Like he was, I'm like, why does he even care? Okay, so here I am doing the very best I can to try and, okay, let's try and do this. He's gone. He wants to, whatever. He didn't even come down maybe twice to visit during the 16 months on a weekend. He forced me and abused me to kind of have my son at one point in time go on a plane and fly with his mother out there to Philadelphia. And like, I didn't want him on a plane. It was, but I was backed against the wall. Like I felt like I was being ripped apart, and like he had control over me. This is all before I really knew what I was dealing with, which is a narcissist. I didn't know what I was dealing with. I had no education really on, heard the word. And then during the time that he was gone, I said, you really need to get our son more acclimated into your parents and their surroundings, and for when you do come back and practice your visitation that you were given, which you haven't practiced, why don't they even call and want to see him? Like, I don't understand it's been months now since I've heard from him. And he said, oh, they're busy, or, oh, she had a broken arm, but yet they have like 4 or 5 other grandkids that they're hanging out with constantly. The father has 3 brothers and a sister, so they got plenty of other grandkids. And I'm like, okay, well, that's just strange. For the better of our child, if you're going to come back and practice visitation, he needs to get to know these people. He's attached to me. I call him my bug. He's literally he's attached to me like a bug. I mean,
he was still very little too at
yes,
this point.
Very little.
What are we talking about? 2 years old?
Right around there, about 2 years old. Right at Hunter's 3rd birthday party. He wasn't even there. I did this huge, party at Monkey Joe's. Spent a pretty penny. I didn't even get offered to have, they didn't offer to pay for a slice of pizza. And there was 25, 30 kids there and parents, and we spent quite a bit of money. Neither here nor there. I tried. I put out the, please, if you're going to be in our life, be in our life. Don't do it like it's a nuisance or what have you. Well, when I fussed at him and said, they haven't even talked to him. Are they going to see him? Honestly, the very next second we get off the phone practically, or minute, the mom calls and says, oh, we would love to see him. I'm like, really? That would be great. He needs to get to know you guys. He doesn't know you guys. And they knew that I was trying. They knew that, but something wasn't right. Just the whole thing. Well, he ended up coming back from Philadelphia, and Hunter was still 3, by about 3.5. And by that time, the woman that he had gone to Philadelphia with, where they were just friends, Hunter was in a surprise wedding. Now there's this new blended family. However, before, he ended up taking me back to court. Hunter would scream and cry when he first came back. I don't want to go. I don't want to go with my dad. I don't like my dad. I'm like, baby, you got, you can't say that. You got to spend some time. And, and it broke my heart, like, to even pull him out of the car and put him in. And I told him, I said, you don't need to do this like a lightning strike. I tried to tell you guys to do it for him. Ease into it now. You were gone. He doesn't know you. He's only known me. Mind you, during this time, I was caring for my grandmother who was in the middle of our living room with multiple myeloma, bone marrow cancer, Alzheimer's, and dementia. Sweetest woman in the world, and we did not want her to go into a nursing home. So my mother and my grandmother took care of me and my son as long as I made sure my grandmother was well taken care of when hospice wasn't here, and helped her eat, fed her, changed her. I gave up a lot so that I could make sure my grandmother could have her final days here. And she had a prognosis of 6 months, and she lasted 7 years. So she got
Wow.
really, really, really good care. But, he did not even try to ease in when he came back. And I was home with Hunter constantly. We were together constantly. And, nobody babysat him. Nobody did anything other than, I would take him to see some friends, and, he was with me. He didn't know anybody else. So you can imagine this little boy who's severely attached to me when I'm not even going to work because I'm taking care of my grandmother, which is a career in itself. God rest her soul. So then he comes back, and he just wants to do this power and control bit, and starts threatening me again. And one night, Hunter came home from being there, and he's 3.5 years old, and he starts doing weird making out with me things, and Mommy, show me yours and I'll show you. And I said, what? And so I emailed the father, and I said, something's wrong here. The other individual that's in that household over there that is new to this family, there's something wrong. And he said Hunter would be the initiator. And he deterred me away from it and made me and I'm like, okay, I know there's something not right here. Well, then my son would go back to that house. And he was still 3, still in diapers. We were working on potty training. And we would do things like, little kids, they see toilets and they see this cold white thing that makes things disappear. It's intimidating to these kids. They don't know what's going on. So you got to kind of get them. There's many different ways to potty train. We would let them personalize the potty and put stickers on it and, wave bye-bye and, to things and let him make that his own. It was filled with Dora the Explorer and, all these different stickers all over the toilet. Well, he would go over there, and Hunter came back and told me my daddy spanked me to make me poop on the potty with a wooden spoon. And I lost it. I lost it. I was like, okay, that's not my parenting. You don't get to just come back in and do that and scare my kid to go poop on the potty. Well, then there was this time when he came back, and Hunter had a fever. He went up the stairs, and he said, Mommy, put a diaper on me. And I did. And he went up the stairs, and he puked. And he was so much in pain. He pooped so much in his diaper. He did not go poop for 3 days. Said he told his dad he did not have to go. He didn't have to go. He had to go. He held it in.
He didn't want to get spanked.
He didn't want to get spanked. So I took pictures of this diaper. It was 3 of them filled with, and he was vomiting, had a fever. And I called him up and I said, he is not going back over there until he is completely potty trained. You can forget it.
How about this molestation thing that happened? Did you contact CPS about this?
I'm gonna get to that here in a minute because
all of this was kind of happening at the same.
Well, this is the beginning of it. So I'm gonna tell you how it all. You'll see, because that was like the first piece where I'm like, okay, I know there's something wrong. A mother's intuition knows, but the father knew that I knew how to get to me and make me go, oh no, that's not it. And oh, little boys want to, act that way. Never even blamed it on this other family member that was twice his age. It was always Hunter's fault. All right, so he got that in my mind. Well, then he ended up taking me back to court yet again for custody. And he lost in front of this other judge, totally different judge, and here in Habersham County, because we live here. I presented the poop diapers and said, this is what happened. I told him this is why. I presented the facts that I was actually, not withholding him or alienating him. His parenting was not right versus mine. You don't do 2 different forms of training. Let's take a wooden spoon and bruise his bottom up to go poop on the potty, or let's give him an M&M and a sticker on the potty. Let him be comfortable. Let him feel. So he got more visitation. He got every weekend. But I still was technically primary custody. So I'm like slowly losing him, like more and more. And I'm like,
this is what they do. They increase the visitation and then they increase the custody and they take it away from the mom.
And I've figured this out, and I was just livid. Well, I had Hunter I was working in a salon and closer here to home before I got my own business now. I had Hunter in a Christian pre-K. And here in the state of Georgia, you don't have to have your kid in school until 1st grade. I decided to put him in a Christian pre-K because it was gated, it was safe, it was the same amount of money as the daycare down the road that wasn't gated, wasn't safe, or as clean. So I said, this is a much better offer, and he gets to learn the Bible, and that's, something that we believe in. Well, when I didn't have to go to work, I'm not putting my kid in pre-K. He can be with me. And there was times when he was sick a lot. He's had to have ear tubes twice and, just massive allergies. I'm not going to throw my kid back in there So there was quite a few days that he didn't go. And so the breaking point was yet again. And we've gone to mediation several times. I've spent so much money on mediation. Before this time, we went to a mediation with that alderman lady, and that's when I said, no, you cannot change your name. While he was in Philadelphia, he calls and says, what's your name? And Hunter says, Hunter. And then he says, what's your last name? Hunter says, Vistein. And he says, no, it's not. It's, which was the father's name. And I said, what the heck are you talking about? And I was like, no, you're not even on the birth certificate. You are not in the labor and delivery room. It's just me and my kid. He had it amended while he was in Philadelphia, some way, somehow. I never even allowed that to happen. So all these things were just building up and building up and building up. And we know now that that's a fucking tactic. Excuse me. It's a tactic to find a way to piss us off. Well, he kept going, threatening me with all these things.
But wait a minute here. So he had himself put on the birth certificate somehow?
Yes.
And then changed the name?
Yes. Even the women in the birth certificate office, they crossed their arms and they looked at me and they said, we have never, in 25 years of working in here, we have never seen this. This is not right. And aldermen signed on it. And then they said that I allowed it. I'm like, no, I did not. Why would I do that?
How did he do that? In some kind of ex parte that he didn't notify you of or something?
I don't know. I do not know how this happened. It was done in mediation, which I know the mediator is now part of the Father's Rights movement. It was done in mediation. He said, it'll be up to the judge. And I said, no, it won't be up to the judge. I'm not accepting that. I gave birth. I chose him. He didn't want him. I wanted him. He's going to have my legal last name, period. He's going to have my name. And no, it's completely...
That's pretty outrageous. How can that even have happened? I must have had some kind of deal with the judge, some order. Yeah.
It was some sort of pull. Well, since all this happened, I'm just livid and everything. It's kind of like a volcano. Build up, build up, build up, and that's one little last drop of heat, make it explode. Well, he had the audacity to tell me, Hunter hasn't been in school this many days, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have to take you back to family court. And I said, you are son of a bitch. You better not even think about it. Like, I was so above and beyond. Like, I am done being pushed against the wall. Done. During this time, I was going to go on vacation with some friends of mine and their children to Florida at one area in Panama. Since something happened to their car, I'd already emailed this jerk, I'm going on vacation to Florida on these days. With everything going on, and I knew something was going on with that little girl in my mind, all these times of him taking me to court and all this money that's like growing off the freaking trees in my backyard, right? Yeah, we'll just keep pulling the money off. And my money coming out of my little grandmother and my mom, and it's hurting the family. And I'm just like, I've got to get out of here. I got to go. I ended up going home to Florida. I needed to get away from the abuse. I needed to protect my son first and foremost. And I needed to figure out what in the world I was going to be doing, because I could not take this abuse anymore. Sometimes
your family was in Florida, right?
Yes. Yes. I have my mother. Can you hear me? Is it mine or yours?
Sometimes with my microphone, but
okay.
Should be okay.
My dad is in Florida. I've got cousins, aunts, uncles. It was the only family member I really have up here was my mom at the time and my grandmother and a couple of, cousins. But I grew up in Florida. I moved away from Florida at the age of 29. So, I've only been gone, I'm sorry, not 29, 25. So I'm going to be 40 in 2 days. So I've only been gone for just a decade plus. But that's where I grew up. I knew everybody there, had family, friends, and I just wanted to go home to my dad. And, mind you, my dad is my stepdad. He's the man that raised me. I don't know my real father. So I've only met him twice that I can ever remember. And so to me, this man that took care of me is my dad. So since I was 2 years old. So I ended up going back there. I was gone for 10 days. According to the court order, I had 233 days a year. He had 100 and whatever left over of the year. Real, true, legal term, I actually had sole physical custody. His attorney wrote such an ambiguous bullcrap motion, or not motion, but order. But yet you can still, when you read in, it shows clearly that I had full custody. He was the visitation custodial. That was it. I was gone for 10 days. 3 of his days. He spoke with Hunter on the phone. He had my phone pinged. I was at my goddaughter's house and her parents. And I stepped outside to find a game for Hunter. And all of a sudden, this sheriff came up and said, "Are you Amanda Vistein?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And sorry. He said, "Put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for kidnapping." I said, "What?" I said, "I have primary full custody. What are you talking about?" And they went in the house and they had a stuffed animal or something. I just remember hearing Hunter saying, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, I don't know what's going on." The sheriff put me in the back of the car. Rough, very rough. And I'm crying and I'm freaking out and I'm like, "What are you doing? Like, you're wrong, you shouldn't be doing this." And all I could think about is my baby. Like, how is he going to feel? He just sees these intimidating people with uniforms and guns and badges. And I later found out that my goddaughter's parents, he was hiding behind the mother's leg and said, "No, where's my mom? Where's my mom?" And then this might sound kind of crazy, but when I saw the father, I was actually relieved, because I was worried that these sheriffs were just driving off with this child, my child, and I didn't want him to feel that terror like that. Like, at least he was at least there. As crazy as it may sound, I was angry, but yet I was so worried about how scared he might be at being in that situation. He was at that time 4, okay, when we were in Florida. It was April 12th. I'm sorry, April 2012, April 23rd, 22nd, 23rd. It's just a blur. They put me in Martin County Jail. uh, I just kept praying and praying and praying. Like, what is going on, God? What are you doing? Like, what's happening? I don't understand. And I just kept thinking about him, because I know I felt him. I felt him. I felt his pain. I felt that he wanted me. And I was put in jail. I was in jail for almost a month there, 3.5 weeks in Martin County, Florida. The experience was, I mean, I lost so much weight. I couldn't eat. I was just a complete and total wreck. I cried every day. I felt his pain. My mom, she finally sent me a picture of him, and I was able to, there's all these little tricks you can do in jail, and you can hang up pictures using their toothpaste. As weird as that may sound, I hung his picture up with toothpaste on this bed that was that thick. Blankets that were like as thick as a sheet. I mean, I left the lights on constantly in jail. So I would put a maxi pad over my eyes so that I would get in trouble for that, so it was like I never slept. It was a total nightmare, just knowing what was going on and I knew I didn't do anything wrong. I just knew within my gut, there's just no reason for me to be in there.
So did they even tell you why you were in there?
Kidnapping.
They told
Interstate interference, kidnapping. And I was no bond. Well, 3.5 weeks later, I was getting ready to be extradited, which means they put you on a bus in shackles and chains, and they put me back in the outfit, which was a sundress, that they arrested me in. And I have shackles and chains 42 hours straight with murderers and rapists behind me. I'm hearing this man talk about how he murdered his wife, banged her head in the toilet, and made her drown and killed her, and ha ha ha. And they're like, I'm just freaked out. I only have so much room. I've got bruises all over my ankles from the shackles and chains. 42 hours straight. They kept dropping them off, these inmates, off in other prisons, and from Florida to Hall County, Georgia. Gainesville, Georgia. Finally, 42 hours later, on Mother's Day.
Oh my God.
I was I'm like, oh yay, that's another little little freaking sick joke. And so I was in there for another 5 days until the bond hearing. This is a judge that I happen to love. When the father was at the bond hearing, I had about 8 people that came in because he was wanting to make sure that I stayed in jail until this was over. And this judge, excuse me, said, this is a custody battle. She doesn't have a criminal history. I am letting her out of jail. So I got bonded out. The judge is actually a pretty awesome lady. She happens to be, this is crazy how this whole full circle works out. She happens to be one of my business partner's clients for the last 20-something years, and she's actually a really stand-up lady. So I really like this woman. So I hadn't seen Hunter in over a month at this point. I had to hire an attorney, and I was able to finally get supervision. Went to in front of the judge. Judge granted him custody, but I still had to see my kid under supervision for quite some time. 1 hour a day or 1 hour, 1 day a week. And I had to pay to see my kid, sometimes 2 hours. And we're still trying to fight and get this done. And this woman from CASA comes in, who happens to be friends with the family, and says, "Oh, are you excited about going to your new school?" Okay, this was a temporary thing where the supervision and the judge was going to decide in 3 months what he really was going to do. So I'm like, how do you know he's even going to be going to this new school? There's so many different fishy things. And she shut up. She knew she put her foot in her mouth. And so I was already upset. Poor kid, though, when he first saw me, he ran into my arms. He said, "Mommy, I don't like you gone for a long, long time, okay?" I said, "I'm sorry, baby. I'm working on it. I'm doing everything I can. I'm really sorry." And
Yeah, how do you explain that, to a
because
boy
it's
who's 4 years old? I mean, you can't even make sense of it yourself, so how can you even explain it to a 4-year-old? It's impossible. That's what's so cruel about it, is it makes no sense to these children.
it's like, they see that their mommy is punished, and
Yeah, for what?
for what? It's
For
like,
a
and
mom.
you tell me how in the hell that's in the best interest of the child. You tell me. No.
It's in the cruelest interest of the child.
Right. All right. So I've worked my way into the courtrooms, and fought to finally get overnight with my son, so my son can come home and be at home and be at peace. New Year's Eve, uh, uh, 2013. I came upstairs and I was making the beds and, getting things situated, and he sleeps with me. He's like, I'm not sleeping. This is the time I get with you. Of course, come on, you're sleeping with me. You're my bug. So I was making the bed, and I came back downstairs, and my mom and he were sitting in this big brown leather chair that we have. And my mom said, "Hunter, why don't you tell your mommy what you just told me?" And Hunter looked down and he said, like he was ashamed. And I said, "What's the matter, baby? You can tell mommy anything." And he said, "I licked my sister's private parts during a private part game, and she kissed me too." That is where I was completely validated as to something was freaking going wrong. And I was so sick and disgusted. I called defects. I called the police. I made a report. Somebody in the Hall County Police said, "I don't care what the orders say, he's not going back there." And then I was forced to still return him. Hunter was spanked, and this idiot wrote it in an email. Hunter was spanked for telling me for something he initiated. So I quickly hired an attorney.
I mean, what did CPS do at this point? I mean,
I did all this, like nothing. I called all of anybody. DFACS came out here and did a interview with Hunter. And I let Hunter and this lady go upstairs. And I said, show her your cool room, Hunter. This is, my friend, blah, blah, blah. And she just wants to see how cool your room is, because that's a pretty cool room. And I'm at the bottom of the stairs, and I hear him confessing to her everything about my that person in the house, because I don't want to taught him this private part game. And he said she would kiss me down there too. And he says, I play it every time I go there. And I'm thinking, what? Then I hear her talk about, can you tell me what happened when your mommy wasn't there with you anymore? I said, I did for every night look out the window crying and crying for my mommy. And I knew it. Like when I was in jail, he was crying and crying for me, waiting for me. He said, I think she was going to drive up and she wasn't there. Can you imagine somebody that protects you all the time is not there to protect you? And he felt ashamed. He knew something. That's one thing these stupid courts need to realize is children are not robots. They have feelings. They know what is right and what is wrong. They are human beings. This age crap stuff, they're the biggest evidence. They're the ones that say, this isn't right. They have more of an intuition than we do. Why it's not being heard in the courtrooms, I don't get. Well, there was a forensic investigation done. And the forensic investigator said, we don't want the father to know. We're going to find a way to get you guys in here. And, I want to talk to the boy. And so he said, we don't know if the father is doing something creepy because it's happened. Thank God that wasn't the case. However, we go into this forensic interview, and the family member that's in question that was doing this with my child, the gentleman comes in and he goes, I've got so many of these cases that I don't have time to look at and read into these cases until the day of. He said, I know this other individual, and they spoke of the private part game because it happened to that little girl, and that perpetrator was put in jail and is still in jail. I put him there. I'm like, oh my God. So that was more
popular game out there, huh?
So it was more validation that, so here's his father blaming it on my child. And instead of protecting him and saying, you know what, I'm sorry, I should have told you this actually did happen. We need to get this other family member taken care of. You need to have him at the house until this is taken care of. I mean, he needed to co-parent with me long ago instead of being a control freak, after me, mad at me for having my child, following through with exactly what he was going to do, make my life a living hell if I didn't have an abortion. So when you know something isn't right, it just hire an attorney, 8 months of proceedings between this crooked attorney I have, who is still trying to collect another $20-something thousand for me when he didn't zealously represent me. And I'm like, bite me. Okay, whatever. Puts me into this courtroom, and then this first judge, recused himself because he realized that this woman that's sitting behind me, who's a dear friend of mine, who worked for another one of his colleagues that is a judge for 20 years. He says, I have to say, I know the whole Henson family. I should have said this before. He said, his uncle is my doctor. His cousin is my grandchildren's basketball coach. But if you want me to hear the case, I will. And that's when I said, no, bye-bye. And that's when Martha Christian came in.
All right, let me pull that up here. Goodness gracious. The face of fraud upon the court.
Yes. She said that I was to pay the tuition cost, a portion of the tuition cost of Hunter's private Christian school, which is an hour away from my house. And she said if I didn't, that I would go to jail. So I was doing that for a while.
Yeah, but what about the molestation?
Yeah, she ruled in my favor. There was all kinds of evidence proving that this actually happened to this individual. There was actual forensic evidence that was pulled out from the files that the previous judge that was right before her said, I need to see. He subpoenaed them. And there was actual documentation of what happened. And I'm so sorry that this happened to this family member. I hate it. But it's proven, scientific study, that 86% will then turn around and practice on others after it's been done to them. And it's very sad, and I hate that this happened, but you do not get to touch my son. And if it's known, you don't get to accuse my son. So, like I said, that was all out. Every piece of evidence from shrinks and doctors and whatever that happened. The judge ruled in my favor, raised my visitations from every other weekend to every weekend, but still gave him primary. And I have to say this much before I go on. I have been connected to quite a few women that you yourself, a woman by the name of Jennifer, she started off in Vermont and now lives in Washington, doesn't even get to even touch or see, and you don't get to touch or see. I'm over here crying about my story, and it is horrific, but it's like I get to see him. I get to touch him, not as what I'm supposed to, and I'm in the wrong situation. So, but it doesn't make any sense, and you guys are in a much worse situation than not being able to touch or see your kids. I don't even understand how the courts say that that's healthy or in the best interest. It makes no sense, and it's happening to so many women, and I am here to try and help make that stop. because the mothers need to be with their children. The children need their primary attachment figures, period. And it is a constitutional violation, alienation from affection, that is going on with a lot of the mothers out there that are in much, much, much worse situation than I am. And I'm very happy about your strength and what you're doing and helping bring awareness, because this is the only way. This is the only way.
Yeah, judicial child trafficking, that's what it's called, and that's what it is. And there's a pedophile agenda in that judicial child trafficking for sure, because in your story, anyone in their right mind would have said, as soon as that stuff came up, as soon as any type of molestation stories come up, that child needs to be removed from the perpetrator or the household where the perpetration is taking place. I mean, 1 and 1 is 2.
Hey, 1 + 1 is 2. I say the same thing, exactly.
And yet it's happening to literally millions of mothers around the world and their children. And that's something that most people don't know. If you're not in this situation, or if you don't know anyone who's in this situation, you think that there's something wrong with the mother for something like this to happen. But in fact, this is the standard. And I'll share my screen here. If you go to my website, freejasmine.com, spelled with the Dutch spelling of my daughter's name, I actually started a database, and I call it Mommy Side. That's what it's called amongst protective mothers. And the Mommy Side database literally has hundreds of clickable links. You can click each of these names here and they will take you to a publication of each of these mothers. These are not my publications. These will take you to newspaper articles, petitions that mothers have made, websites that mothers have made, and all our stories are the same. Some, lead eventually to murder. A lot of the mothers and a lot of the children are murdered. But you can go through this entire website and click on these names and see for yourself. If you're new to the plight of protective mothers, this is just, of course, a tip of the iceberg. I'm only one person, and I'm doing the show, and I'm fighting for my own daughter, so my time is limited. But I have started putting this together, for all the protective mothers out there. So when people say to you, like, how can that have happened? You say, well, actually, this is the norm, believe it or not, but this is the norm. And I mean, this list goes on and on and on and on and on. And it's just, like I said, tip of the iceberg, because the estimated mothers in this situation are 8 million of us worldwide. There's at least 2 million in the United States, and those are conservative numbers. If you go to the Leadership Council, and I'm just trying to get another one, this one over here, because people would, when I share these numbers, say, where are you getting these numbers? Well, this is all concluded by researchers who have looked into this. And then fathers' rights people will say to me, well, that research, has certain type of funding. And it's like, you know what? I don't think so, because scroll through it. It is research, newspaper articles, research, findings, conclusions. This is not just one article. You know what I mean? 82% of abusive men who fight for custody get full custody. And what happens to the mothers is we either have no contact with our children whatsoever, or we're put on supervised visitation. Now, the supervised visitation, how much money did you pay for supervised visitation?
It was $76 an hour, and sometimes they would let me do 2 hours. Gee, wasn't that nice? You know, going back to the Richard Gardner, that whole parent alienation syndrome doesn't exist. It's not real. Discredited by the APA and the CDC. So why do the courts promote a man that promoted pedophilia, and why do they use that training? The courts need to be retrained because it's only causing huge problems later on down the line. Some of these children are growing up doing bad things like shooting up schools and, you know, whatever else they're doing. They're not growing up in a normal life. It's damaging our world is what's going on.
Well, you know, that would certainly be one argument. Another argument would be, gosh, maybe this is a certain agenda that's being perpetrated in the family court system. One of them is financial. I mean, you know, I actually had visitation 2 times, for the first time in 18 months, and someone sent me the link. Yeah, but the thing is that the supervisor wanted a $5,000 retainer for me to talk to my daughter on Skype. I mean, these are the kind of scams that are going on out there, and
they prey on us as mothers.
Mm-hmm. So when you click on this link here, because I started looking into this scam, so when you click on the Supervised Visitation Network Worldwide, this is on my Facebook page, and you scroll down to November 30th, okay, you can click on this, and it'll show you that within 24 hours, you can become a certified supervisor in the family court mafia scam. You have your 24-hour certificate training here, and then after that you can charge, you know, these outrageous amounts, $60, $75. This other supervisor said she wanted $200 a week. I've actually heard situations with protective mothers where they were on a $70 or $50 an hour supervised visitation setup, and then you know, within the scam and the scheming, suddenly they were charged $1,500 for an hour of supervised visitation in order to push the mother out, right? Because who can afford to pay $1,500 a week to have an hour with your child?
That should be illegal.
I mean, this needs to be audited. I'm hoping that people are watching. Policymakers are watching. I want these people audited. I want the money going towards these programs audited. Who is handling this? Because these are private contractors.
Health and Human Services, CPS.
No, this is not
the Father's Rights Movement. No, I'm saying it's the Father's Rights Movement. That's all the federal grants that are coming up. And
right.
There's
are independent contractors and
nonprofit.
The woman that did the supervision in my case for a bunch of times, you know, 2 years ago. For what I found out is she doesn't even have certification. I mean, so who is out
she
there?
Take notes?
No, she didn't take notes. She didn't have a contract. She allowed the father to be present during the visitation. She broke all the rules. And so where do you even file a complaint? Who is the supervisor? Who is supervising the supervisors here?
Well, no, I think you have to do a Freedom of Information Act on the outfit itself. The Freedom of Information Act on
it's not an outfit. It's an independent contractor.
Yeah, but they still are collecting money somehow, right? Yeah. So you've got to figure out on a state level and on a federal level where this money is coming from. And if it has anything to do with the Father's Rights Movement, you've got to figure out which nonprofit organization in that area is the Father's Rights Movement. And then you've got to just start collecting it and then piecing it together. I found I
This
felt,
is what I'm saying. I don't think you should be on supervised visitation, and neither should I.
no, nobody should be at all. No, no, but if we can find the dirty money and we get in their face, see, when we
Well,
get in their face, they get
the
scared.
root of the root of the scheme, besides the paternal entitlement factor, is the money. I mean, this is a two-pronged thing, and there's factions on Facebook fighting over what the true cause is, but there are multiple things going on at the same time. There's a money incentive, and there's a paternal fascism incentive.
Yes, it's all a huge racket. Before I even knew anything was going on, I somehow stumbled across Liz Richards' National Alliance for Family Court Justice. And I think I sent you that link. She's the one who educated me on the father's rights movement. She's the one who said, we've got to find the access visitation grants and see who all has been paid in our scheme. She's also the one that said, we all have got to come together and show that this is actually happening. When I connected with my friend Jennifer, I learned a lot. Like, I began to feel a little bit more peace, even though I was angry. Like, wow, I know now it's making sense what really happened. I know I didn't do anything wrong. They're making money. So Jennifer and I were looking in both areas where we were, and I found two organizations, nonprofit organizations, that I decided to look into in the year 2012. One of them was called, and I don't give a crap, I'm going to say it, More Than Conquerors. Doesn't that just sound like a manly man penis name? Another one is called the Future Foundations. So, and they hide behind the words teen pregnancy and marriage counseling and blah, blah, blah. These are what you got to kind of look for in these nonprofit organizations. In the year 2012, I looked up the EIN number for the More Than Conquerors. Then I went to their 990 for the year 2012, and it shows that they nonprofited 1.2 million, blah, 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 that year. Then I went on their audit, harvest.com, for that year, and it only showed 780,000. Where did the rest of that money go? So I did a FOIA on them, and it took them about 2 years to answer me. But they were marking out names. Now, on that, what I just sent you about the Liz Richards, she has a huge packet where she talks about the father's rights movement and how this one woman, Karen Anderson, was able to find these access visitation grants. And she was able to expose the crap out of these people they cause sick and twisted litigations within the court systems. The wheels begin to spin. Doctors get paid. Judges get paid. Lawyers get paid. Sometimes even the fathers get paid. Supervision outfits or whatever they are get paid. Crooks, they get paid just to cause these sick and twisted litigations. There is a lot of information with this woman. What she's been through was hell too. And this is like another woman that she'll tell you everything in here. If you've never heard of her, she's also knew about Barry Goldstein. And I read his book, The Quincy Solution, a year ago. And I was so ecstatic when I saw that you even had it on your, you had an interview with him. And it's just, it brings me peace knowing we're not alone, even though, you know, what this woman wants, her legacy is to bring people together. The more people you have together, instead of one or two people going into a court or uh, Washington or wherever they're making the laws. It's not going to work. If we had 100,000 of us or more going in there going, yeah, you want to tell us what's going on here, and it's time to change the law, or exposure. They don't like exposure. And
That's why we're here.
there are no grants for mothers, but there's all kinds of grants for fathers. I want to know why.
Right. Here's the research on that by Doreen Ludwig. She actually researched the federal funding going into the father's rights.
Mac abuse, is that?
Yeah, Mac abuse with two C's, MACCA.
I'm going to write that down.
The wonderful amount of research that she's doing. You can actually, she's followed the money, and you can just download this stuff here.
Okay.
The AFCC is what's running the show in the United States. The judge in my case actually lectures at the AFCC about facilitating visitation between in international custody disputes when the parent is an ocean apart from the other parent. Meanwhile, I'm on the phone with her on court call saying, I haven't had any contact with my daughter in 18 months. Please enforce the damn order.
What about Hague? Is Hague not helping in any way?
No. Central authority is supposed to help, and they have not done a thing. It is an outrage, but I am with you. I'm all about Operation Expose, and I'm doing a lot, not just this show, but a lot in the background to show the people in charge of these authorities what's going on here. I mean, we got to take it to the United Nations and hold the governments responsible from the top down. That's the only way. You have to beat them from the top down with a big stick and say, what the hell are you doing with our children? And they know, they know what's going on.
But they don't expect us to know. And that's the thing. Here's yet. Now I've got Hunter back on, and I have him every weekend except for the first weekend of every month, and he still is doing abusive situations. It's 20 degrees out and he doesn't have a jacket, and I'm finding out about it, and he is being forced to be put outside while his other cousins are allowed to come in the house, and it's cold out with no jacket. Hunter is telling me these things. I call DFACS, and they go over and investigate, and then he comes over here, and I'm like, he needs a jacket. What is your deal? He gets sick all the time. He has ear issues. He needs a jacket. He got into an altercation, and he ended up taking me back to court to where I only was going to have supervision. Now, after all that, he takes me back into court. I'm already researching all this stuff with the father's rights, and I'm already doing a FOIA on a state level to his attorney. I found $43,000 paid to her in the year 2012. Okay, so I'm going in the courtroom, and I'm like, I have had it. And Liz Richards says, you got to grow some balls. You got to get in their face. Otherwise, they're going to just beat you up. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done being intimidated. I'm not doing it anymore. I get on the stand and I look at the judge like we're having freaking tea and crumpets. And I said, look, I know what's going on. I said, she got paid $43,000. I was maliciously prosecuted. The case was dismissed, mind you. The case was dismissed because, oops, she did have custody. Bye. Actually, they were in the wrong venue to begin with. He did all this mumbo jumbo when he wasn't even in the right venue. It's kind of like a sheriff going from one county to another and pulling over and giving somebody a ticket. It doesn't work that way. You're not even in your venue. You have no jurisdiction, period. So they dismissed the case. And I told the judge, I said, I know what's going on. I know about the Child Protective Services and the HHS and the Father's Rights Movement, and I know about all the illegal grants and the nonprofit organizations, and I listed the More Than Conquerors, and I listed the money she's made, and I said, I am not stupid. I'm not putting up with it. And I did Freedom of Information Acts. Well, whenever I got off the stand, and I even mentioned Barry Goldstein, and the judge is like writing it down, you know. And whenever I got off the stand, he did his old, and I actually like this judge. I like this judge, this one judge. This is the second judge I like. He said, you know, you think she needs a psychological evaluation? He said, you need a psychological evaluation. He said, and when we get back into this courtroom, I'm going to be reevaluating custody. 2 days later, douchebag dismisses the case. Now, I would have had custody back, 100%.
What happened?
Well, he dismissed the case because he knew doggone good and well. Also, he had me in the courtroom because I refused to pay this tuition crap. Like, I'm not paying him a penny. I'm not, you just forget it. I don't care. It's in the court order, but the court order is wrong. All this is wrong. I'm growing balls. I don't care. You don't get to bulldoze me over, and I'm going to sit there and go, okay, I'm just going to, no, it's not working. I'd rather wear orange or whatever color it is anymore in there. And I found out also that my son was on this pay it forward program the entire time. So I'd been paying this guy money when the school tuition was already paid for. He found out I found that out as well, and he dismissed the case. So if I were to rebring the action, it would be in front of that Martha Christian psycho nut.
Okay, yeah, you don't want that.
No.
Well, let's go.
Yes, you know, so, but by the grace of God, I kept knocking on every door for somebody to help me out with this malicious prosecution. It was illegal. Should never have happened. I knew it. And somehow, some way, I got connected with the guy that lives in Miami, that has a practice in Miami, but also has a practice in Atlanta. When he read my stuff, he said, this is the most absurd stuff I've ever seen. I don't know how it's happened. I'm taking your case. Hallelujah. So now we are suing 6 people, 2 DAs, 3 sheriffs, and the father of my child for malicious prosecution.
Awesome. So, we need more of those attorneys. Please send them my way.
Well, you know, honestly, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way, because if this guy can practice in more than one place, I'm sure others are out there. And if they see this show, you know, honestly,
they can make bank. I mean, seriously, in my case alone, you can sue CPS, the mediator, the schools, the therapists, the supervisors, the attorney, the state. You know, there's so much money to be made on my case. Anyone's watching, please take my case. Let's make money. I mean, I'm planning that anyway. So
I have a funny feeling that with all of this connecting all the women, and you say that it could be more than 8 million, but roughly 8 million, this father's rights movement, really, if the devil would get out of the government and God would put his hand on it, we would help a lot more money flow with making things right and doing good instead of this crooked stuff, causing our children to be put on this medication. And like, I wouldn't dare medicate my kid, but there's some schools that are forcing medication onto some of these kids, even in foster homes. Perfectly good parents are losing
foster homes.
Yeah, perfectly good parents are losing custody to their children because foster homes get a wonderful kickback, and then they medicate the kids.
Yeah, it's a perfect place for kids to test medications on children as well, you know?
Yeah, it's almost like a what are you, a Nazi war guy, whatever, trying to study and do all this stuff on their soldiers that were hurt or whatever they did, whatever that guy's name was.
What, Mengele?
I think,
Joseph Mengele.
yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it takes us into the area of MK Ultra and mind control, and that's exactly what one of the parts of the agenda seems to be, is to traumatize the mothers into non-action. So we have this generation of traumatized children that we can test medications on and therapy. And it's like, let's see how much cruelty and torture we can inflict on mothers and children and what will happen then. It's like a mass experiment or something. Hell is for protective mothers as well. And we're not going to
process.
Yeah, they come across us because you know what? We're not going to be
face.
Yeah. We're not gonna take any of this, and we're gonna turn the game on them. Because guess what? Everyone who's traumatizing protective mothers and children, you're gonna face us now, because we're gonna turn the game. We're gonna turn the game on them. Here they think they make money off of this. So we're gonna turn that around.
We have to bring awareness, and as many mothers that understand that if you hide in a corner and you don't say anything, it's not going to do anything for the future of the children. Children are our future. We are here to make sure that we have a good America and a good world, right? So why are we screwing up the future? What are you doing?
Well, there's good attorneys out there, and I'm glad you have one. And I want to mention this really good attorney by the name of Sean McMillan. He's in California, and he actually does workshops on how to sue CPS for millions of dollars. Please go and find out where his meetings are. I'm asking him to start streaming his webinars, stream it live so we can all follow it. There's many avenues you can take. We all need to massively sue the individuals that are doing this to us. Sue them for defamation, intentional torts. I mean, there's many, many ways to go after these people. It's work. Yes, it's work. But, God, it's such a gratifying work. I love writing these suits. I mean, I'm ready. I'm like, I got a whole arsenal ready to launch. And, I'm just getting started. I just got started this summer, and gosh, law, I'm having fun. I can be real creative with law now. And everyone can just copy my cases. All you do is just plug in your own information and just fire away. And this is what we're going to be doing. You know what I mean? The Protective Mother Pro Se League. And if you have attorneys, please share what they are submitting. If we all share our stuff, we can all copy and paste the basics, the frameworks, and just plug in our own information and full-on counterattack. And that would be my advice for all the protective mothers out there who are watching the show. I understand there's going to be a time when you're traumatized and you're in bed with the blankets over your head and you don't want to face the world. But then there comes a point that you say, enough's enough. You want to do this to me? I don't think so. Mm-hmm. I'm going to turn this game on you, and you're going to regret you ever laid eyes on me. And that anger can be, you can make that so productive.
Turn it into a positive and
right. Transform it into this very productive way out and
dig
the game on them.
Yeah, dig and know your gut. Know your gut is truth. It's telling you didn't do anything wrong. There's money involved. It's power and control.
I spoke to a 12-year-old judicial child trafficking victim a few weeks ago, and she said to me, "You know what, Geerte? The best thing in life is if you speak the truth. If you always speak the truth, you have nothing to be afraid of. It's the most wonderful thing." Here's this 12-year-old girl. She said,
Empowered.
I just speak the truth. So I never have to worry about anything. And that is the key, people. Just speak the truth. You got the evidence, right? So just go for it. I'm not afraid of anything or anybody because I have the truth on my side. I have the evidence. Now, I'm turning the game on them. Yeah, you turn the game on them. Let these people explain their lies now because they have no evidence for whatever narrative they're throwing out in the world, these false allegations and the blah, blah. They're going to have to be held accountable for that nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it's time. And, you know, when you have to sit there and be a mother and you're able to have this gift given to you by the good Lord above, and nature, and then you lose your child, it's almost like asking a bird to fly without its wings. It doesn't work. You at first you're just like completely lost, but once you figure out, no, you're always going to be the mother. You're always going to be like, the biggest thing that they do is they want to do everything they can to rip your bond apart. I'm very grateful that Hunter and I, our bond is he tells me, Mommy, I want to marry you. You know, I mean, he just, I love you, and you know, you're just the most amazing mommy ever. And he gives me sweet little cards, and I go to his lunch a lot. I do everything I can, even when I'm not with him. But during all this time, you know, when he's not with me, he comes home. This is his home. That place is his sentencing. He comes home with nervous tics, constant little nervous new tics, and I've recorded a few of them without him knowing. But you know that these children, they're expressing things in a way of, you know, this isn't right. And when he's with me, he calms down. It takes a little while, but he calms down. So it's just like there's so many little pieces of information, not just with the father's rights, not just with us, the children. Children are giving us information. If we're, you know, if you're able to even have supervision, that's the worst thing in the world, the fact that you can't even see your daughter. And my friend Jenny can't see her son. And she is a fighter, but yet she is also, she can be scared. And I've been trying to tell her, and she's doing it. She's coming out, but that woman is intelligent. And you can learn so much from her. But our children need to be a voice. They need to be heard. They don't need to be, they can't talk to anybody at the age of 5. Well, why not? They can tell if you're a jerk or not, you know?
Absolutely.
You know?
Children know what's going on. They know exactly what's going on. They know they're being handled, so to speak. And especially for them, actually wrote them a letter on my website explaining to them what's happening and why. I think that's very important. They know that what's going on is wrong. They might not understand why adults are doing this. And so I put this out there. It's basically an explanation in child's language as to why this is happening, how people are making money off of this, you know, what you can do about it as well. So for any children out there, if you're watching the show, or if you're a protective mom and you want to put this on your Facebook page and in the hopes that your child will read this or any other social media, please feel free to share, because empowering the children is extremely important. They need to get a voice in the judicial system. But even if they do, you know, I mean, in my particular case, my daughter was allowed to speak to the judge, supposedly. I haven't seen any recordings of it, for 5 minutes. And, you know, she's not going to say anything. She's got to go home with the perpetrator. 10 minutes later.
It's called Stockholm Syndrome, where they are can be threatened or, made to be scared if they don't say. They're coached in a certain way. If they don't say what the perpetrator, whatever creep, if they don't say what he wants, then they're going to be in trouble.
All right. There's going to be consequences for that. So this message, the message for the stolen kids, has tips and advice for the children on how to handle that, what to do, how to find an adult that you can trust and really share what's going on, and make a plan of action.
Knowledge is power.
Right. And for the adults, for the protective mothers who are wondering why this is happening, or for any viewers who are new to this material, here on my website I have a tab called Reflection, where I've shared my research on all of this and why and how children are trafficked through the global family court system. And it also shows, with backed up with academic research, with the research that we just shared about finances, about federal funding, the scam that it is. This is a funny clip, a parody, but it's true. Very interesting to watch how these lawyers are making tons of money from this scheme, and the amounts of children that this is happening to. Of course, there's a relation to all of this to the pedophile mafia that's producing child pornography, right? It is a pro-pedophile father's rights mafia. And interesting, the whole Pizzagate.
I learned about that one. That is insane. The Pizzagate and the code word that they use, and I'm just so disgusted about that one. But there was a thing on the news on the talk radio yesterday. It talked about the Clinton Foundation states that it's false news.
False news.
False news that this is actually happening. I pray to the good Lord above that this stops. It's so sad. You know what Amber Alerts are on your phone? Yeah, like 5 of them in the last week, and it happens a lot during the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
That Pizzagate thing.
Well, you know what? I'm more than willing to have a conversation with anybody about the numbers of children that are disappearing, because I started looking into that. The Center for Missing and Exploited Children put out the following statistics: that there are 500,000 children in the U.S. annually disappearing. From what I looked at all the numbers globally, and I'm estimating that from their numbers alone, so these are conservative numbers, 2 million children disappear every year. So if 20 million children per decade disappear, where do they go? They don't just evaporate.
No. We know where they're going.
For anyone who says that the Pizzagate scandal is not happening, I would like an answer from them as to where these 2 million children per year disappear to. And as long as they don't have an answer to that question, the Pizzagate might be a very viable, realistic thing that's happening. And if you go and research it, and there's plenty of YouTube videos on this, and you can, research Facebook as well.
It's disgusting.
The dots that are being connected are very realistic. There's evidence. So interestingly enough, even the FBI is admitting that it's going on. And that's what I arrived at this week. I started digging into it a little bit deeper. There's actually a, I'll try and pull it up here on my Facebook. I posted it as a private post, but I actually want to share it publicly because this is a retired FBI director who, once he got into retirement, he started sharing what's really going on. And it's an hour and a half interview that's on YouTube. Let me pull it up over here. I'm doing a big scroll-a-thon because people are dumping so much on my timeline. It's like I've lost control of my timeline.
People are finding you. That's a good thing.
And on that note, I appreciate everybody who's contacting me, but sometimes, I get like over 50 to 60 messages a day, and I can't keep up with all of you, and I'm sorry if I can't have in-depth conversations with all of you. I'm really trying to keep up with it, but it's a lot, so please hang in there with me. So yeah, here we go. Let me share my screen. And this is retired FBI Director Ted Gunderson.
Ooh.
He was murdered in 2011. He went on public speaking occasions and released numbers that were unknown to the larger public. This video has just come out. It's just been made public. This I highly recommend everybody watch it because he is basically explaining the government side of Pizzagate. He admits that the FBI refuses to investigate this pedophile child trafficking because it goes up into the White House.
Yes, it does.
Over 700 children a year. That's his estimate. So his estimate is higher than the estimate of the Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I believe this, what he says is 83 children per hour, and that's in the United States alone. I think that number's gone up. These are old numbers. I think this particular speech that you can find on YouTube is from 2008, so we can only just imagine what the numbers are now. I would like everybody to go and watch this because there's one thing for me to share these numbers, but there's another thing to hear it from a retired FBI director. I mean, if you don't take it from me, if you don't take it from other moms, if you don't take it from wherever, fine, but then listen to the man who was working in this field for his entire career. I love YouTube in that sense, you know what I mean? You can find so much information. Yeah. I just watched an entire documentary on a CIA asset who explains how 911 was completely orchestrated. It's all coming out. And that's
wasn't that Michael Moore? Didn't he talk about that too?
No, that's another. It's a CIA asset who just came out on YouTube last month. I mean, this is all just coming out, and of course, it's been out via other channels as well. But it's important when the folks that are working within the system at that level are explaining as to what's going on.
Really makes you wonder why people that are the demons like this are taking such a risk. I mean, you're going to get found out. People find out. I don't understand. Like, there's whistleblowers. Why do you do, and why children? Why are you that sick? What are you doing? I don't.
Well, if you start looking into the whole agenda of the New World Order and the UN Agenda 21 that talks about purposely ripping up families, the agenda is to, from what I can tell, I mean, this is just from what I'm picking up, and that's what I share in my reflection piece. that it is about control, and it's about when you damage children, they've done research on this. If you traumatize children like this, their actual the way their brain develops is actually influenced, and so they have actual brain changes from this trauma, from this this form of mind control. Why do you want to mind control children through trauma? Because then you can control them. You're creating a generation of adults. I mean, these children are going to be adults, right, in the next 10, 15 years, whatever age they're at. And it's easier to control them when they are psychologically, physically, and emotionally damaged. That is the ultimate purpose from what I can extract from the information that I'm looking at. And of course, again, it has to do with a very sick agenda of this pedophile mafia that wants to torture children through their own, physical twisted lust. I don't know. It's something beyond anything human, as far as I'm concerned. This has nothing to do with being a person who has human rights values whatsoever, right? I mean, these are, like you said, it's a demonic energy, and we need to go after these people. We need to out them. That's why the Pizzagate scandal is good, right? The WikiLeaks email dumping is very important,
I saw that.
And shows like this are important, where a mom like you has the courage to come out and share a very personal story and a very heartbreaking story. Yeah, I mean, it's extremely difficult, but it is through these stories that people are going to start thinking,
opening their eyes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we're trying to do here at CCN. We're trying to open people's eyes and, get them going into action, And so let's talk about action. We've talked about suing CPS, suing social workers that are doing this, filing complaints against corrupt attorneys, corrupt judges. Another thing that we can do is we can court watch for each other.
Okay.
Right. So if you have a court case coming up, then we will all join you, for example, on a Facebook event. I was just sharing that with another mom today. Just make a Facebook event. And if you don't want your name public because you're worried about retaliation, then have a friend make the page for you, the Facebook event, and just say, anonymous protective mother needs support. This is the date of my case. This is the location. Everybody please show up. You can also add the name of the judge and with a telephone number and a short message for people to leave a voicemail for this judge. And this is the type of stuff that we can do.
Okay, right? That's really good information. It'll be held in federal court when it does happen. So they still have to answer to the complaint. So the whole thing finally just started rolling. But
so you have a federal complaint right now, and it's against. Tell us again, because you just listed 2 sheriffs.
It's 3 sheriffs. 3 sheriffs. Yeah, 2 of the DAs, which the day of the bond hearing, the father pooped out of his mouth and told my best friend that was there at the hearing, after that judge let me out, the nice judge let me out, and said, letting her out, he said, we're going to go for the max. We know the DA. We're going for the max of 5 years. I'm sorry. But then I've been working in this salon in Gainesville, and I found out all the connections between all of them and how they all do really, they know each other. So
you can get them on colluding.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing for your federal?
That's there's that, and then there's my constitutional rights were violated. Let me look and see which one exactly. There was my
And so are you suing? I hope you're suing for damages, like really
yes,
damages.
1983 and 1988 is malicious prosecution. My 4th, 5th, and 14th Amendment were completely violated, and I am going to be suing for damages, lost wages, pain and suffering, past and future pain and suffering. Yeah, he's going for it. Like, he's not even messing around. Let me see here. Let me find it.
I love it. I love it. And you know, for any attorneys who are watching this show, please contact me. You know, you can take my case. So I'm writing my own cases now, but I sure can always use help. The Free Jasmine Army is growing every day, and
yes, get that baby home.
Yeah, and but you know, I'm also the gateway to thousands of other protective mothers, and all these cases. These are all, you know, there's lots of money to be made. Let's be clear on one thing: we're not doing that for the money. We want these children back, and we want to go after the people that are inflicting this judicial child trafficking, and teach them a lesson.
They can't do this.
If they even stay in their jobs, they'll think twice for ever doing this to another protective mother and their
child. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's time. If, just like Liz Richards says, we need to have an army. We can't just have 2 people going into Washington or whoever makes the laws or wherever. We need to have an army. And if you're across the world, I'm over here in Georgia and you're in New Zealand or
no, Netherlands.
I knew it was that was, that's freaking cool. I mean, and you have...
I'm fighting in California. I'm just studying California family law, and I'm just doing it myself. I'm getting into federal law now too. It's getting real interesting. So, you know, just got to have fun with it. Start having fun with it. It's a drag in the beginning, but once you get the knowledge, you can get real creative. Just like what your attorney is doing. You just start looking through the statutes and statutes, and you just start seeing like, oh yeah, I can use this and that and that, and then it becomes a real nice case.
Yeah.
And you just slam them back, because this is what fathers' rights people do. They go after a protective mother through what's called vexatious litigation.
Right.
Well, the best answer to that is to vexatiously litigate back.
Yeah. Grow some, you know what, balls, and get them right back. Don't let them...
Beat them at their own game. I mean, this is the game they want to play. Fine, and they can have it. Go play it. And now the shoe's on the other foot. And now what you going to do?
Well, if I could only have been a fly on the wall when they received the papers. I would love to have, yeah, they probably crapped their pants.
What these people need to understand is that, you know, a lie has an expiration date, but the truth does not. And we're not going to go away. We're only getting stronger and stronger.
Right.
And we're going to go after each and every individual responsible for child trafficking. Now, let's go back to your case, because we have a few minutes left. Okay. And I want to get kind of an update or where you are now. You're going forward with this federal case, which I think is awesome.
Yes,
and that is the way to go. So thank you for being an inspiration to all the other protective mothers out there.
What I hope for. I really do. You're welcome.
And how's it going?
We're just waiting for them to answer. Oh, well, you know what? As soon as, I think I think they're a little scared, but he did do something that was really out of left field. He had my son in the cold and the rain raking the other night.
So the child abuse is continuing, right?
Yes,
He's out
and
without a jacket when it's 20 degree Fahrenheit, which is like
well, he did have a jacket on this time, but the fact that he was out in the rain, raking in the rain, I said, why don't you have your dad get out there and rake? Why doesn't he do it? Or why don't you do it when it didn't rain here in Georgia. We suffered from wildfires, acres and acres and acres of mountains and Appalachian trails because we didn't have rain in over 50 days. What the heck's the problem? Why aren't you having him rake when it's dry as heck out? But then when it starts finally pouring, thank the Lord, he has him raking then, but it was after he got these papers. And Hunter's half-brothers get all kinds of things and they rub it in his face and, just certain kind of mental abuse. Like they'll get, and they're younger than he is, but they'll get the big piece of steak. And I know this might not sound like a lot, but then he gets the really small piece or just really messed up things. He's made to be put on the back burner constantly. These boys.
So how are you going to get switched to custody? Are you going to do that through the federal case as well?
Since this is federal case, this is technically not a custody battle. However, they're going to know that I'm not going to quit one way or another. And I'm doing everything in my power to show that this has been completely wrong and illegal. And I hope and pray that maybe the federal judge will suggest to whoever that's supposed to listen to it as a court, or hopefully the father would just give up.
Well, let's talk strategy at some point when we're not on air.
That would be wonderful because I'm hoping to scare the crap out of him enough to where he's just like, okay, I'm done. In order for him to hire an attorney, a federal case, retainer has to be $25,000 a minimum.
Oh, more than that.
Like just for him. So he said he was going to make my life a living hell. Touche.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You don't get to do that to my kid. I become steamroller. So yeah, I would love to talk.
You're on the right track, and like I said, I think you're a real inspiration for other protective mothers out there. And I want to thank you for coming on the show and doing the interview. I know it's really hard, and it's especially when you barely ever do media, but it's very important. And you're awesome. Rock on.
You're awesome.
You got the strategy down. You got the sword in your hand. Keep going. And thank you for sharing your story.
And thank you for letting me share it because I could not wait to finally get this out there some way, somehow. So you are an angel in disguise, sweetheart. We're
doing it together.
Yes, we are.
Together we are the tsunami of change, as I call it, and that's what we need to be. Like you said, we need to come together and do it together. And these people are going to regret ever messing with us.
That's right.
We're going to help all the other mothers too, and together we're going to turn this thing around. So, thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to talking to you again. You are so amazing. And free Jasmine. Bring her home.
That's right. Right. Bring her home now. So thank you for watching, everybody. And I hope to see you all again next week on another episode of Hell's for Children. Bye-bye.